All right, guys, welcome back to Lifers. I'm Jay. Laura couldn't be with us today, but I have a special guest who has a unique story. His name is Robert Howard. I wanted to welcome on the show. Thanks for joining me, man.
Uh, Thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to have you on the show because obviously we talked in the past about doing something like this, but our stories are so similar in a lot of ways. And you're a kidney recipient. And like I said, there was some similarities, also some differences. So I wanted to bring you on just to talk about it. And I know you're like advocate as well. So could you just kind of tell people the background and kind of what happened before your kidney transplant to leading up to it?
Okay, sure. Well, the history of it is that I was born with a small kidney that never worked from the day I was born.
Okay.
So small that once I grew, they didn't see it anymore, so they thought I was born with one. And so after a while, the one I had that was functional wasn't fully functional ever. So it ended up failing around about when I was 28, actually 29.
Okay.
So, and then my journey from there, once I went to the hospital and then they found out that I had that situation, my journey was, first of all, was trying to get my mind together on what I'm going to do, find the information. And then I had to get past the fear of not fitting in. That didn't matter anymore. Taking care of business mattered.
Right.
But it took a second. It takes a second for you to realize what's going on.
Yeah.
And everything. So the life changes that came with it, I had to embrace it, but I also had to get my mind right on, take every step I need to take towards things. The hardest part of it was there was no guidelines to it. There was no support system for it, no groups to come together, not that much read material on it. It was just, go to the doctor and we go from there.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing was I did some research and found out that one of the best hospitals in the United States for kidney transplants were in Springfield, Michigan. And my father had to be living there at the time. He told me come and stay with him and we figured this out.
Okay.
So I had to change where I was so I can change my thought process and get my mind together and do things the correct way. Because before I was falling into bad habits and everything, being around the same old.
Yeah.
So once I went to a new environment, everything had to change from that point, which was the best step I've ever made. It was, and then from there, it was just getting the right doctors that thought outside the box, so they can help me instead of just going by the book and this was general for everyone. And once I started getting that, there were two of them that did that. Out of 7 doctors I had, 2 of them actually thought outside the box and got my blood work right and everything. Yeah. Because my numbers were, my toxin level were really high. Like I was supposed to be a corpse high. Oh. Right. Wow. Okay. So they work within those numbers while everybody else was trying to get my numbers down to a ridiculous level that wasn't going to happen unless I got a transplant. They realized that, stabilize them, get them a transplant, all this stuff will fall in line. So I forgot the right doctors to work with me because you have to get the ones in tune with you. And you also have to listen to your body so you know what's what with your body also.
Yeah. I wanted to mention that too, because you led right into what I wanted to ask. What were some of the signs and symptoms for when your kidney was breaking down? When you said around 28, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what were some of the signs that you recognized when you felt like, I got to find out what this is. I got to get some help with this?
Well, my situation was a little different because when I was growing up, I had my days of energy, then a little bit of energy and no energy. Depends on what days it was. So I was so inconsistent. I didn't have the confidence in myself when I was growing up because of the inconsistency. So some days when I was just didn't have it all, I was so used to that for my whole life that I didn't know that that was part of my system breaking down.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have an inconsistency within your body of certain days you're on point and other days you're not, but
Yeah.
you got the proper rest and everything, but
Yeah.
you're not on point, then something's breaking down.
Yeah.
It's like I ignored that for so long. It got to the point where I was up for 4 hours in a day. And I was sleeping 20 hours. I was still tired. It felt like somebody had a sledgehammer to my back and was just beating me with it. And I
Wow.
had a headache for a week.
Wow.
So, right. That's when I was like, you know what? Let me go in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shouldn't have took all that. But, like I said, I was so used to being drugged as far as like not having the energy,
Mm-hmm.
and that was part of what it was. So the inconsistencies, when you start getting that, that's step one. You need to get checked out.
Yeah. I think a lot of people ignore the signs. Like you said, they get used to living with it, so they don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily get help. And in your case, it was good that you got help in a timely manner. But a lot of people, they go on and go on with it until it's something that can't be reversed, or it's to the point that, again, it's the doctors are just throwing their hands up and saying, hey, we wish you would have come sooner. So, especially within a certain demographic, they just, with men, we don't, a lot of times men are like notorious for not going and getting help a lot of times, right? So they talk
Oh
about
yeah.
dragging to the doctor's office all the time. So, but
All
yeah,
right.
I wanted to know also, what was your support system like? I mean, I knew your dad was there at the time. Did you have a great support system to kind of urge you on? Because I know a lot of times, just speaking from personal experience, it can be depressing. It can be isolating, like you feel like you're going through the thing by yourself. But how was your support system during that time?
My support system was not good at the time because they didn't understand what was going on, and I couldn't really explain to them because I'm learning as I go.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like I said, it's way more information now. Support groups, all kinds of things where people can learn. You can even go on YouTube and learn a few things here or there. Back then, it was nothing.
Yeah.
So it was days I was depressed. It was days I felt like nobody in the world understood what I was going through.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can't even explain to them what you're going through, what you're feeling, or anything for them to understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first time around was not a good support system because of that. Now I urge people to have learn as much as you can and share it with people,
Mm-hmm.
so the people that are your support system can learn as they go. Like that. Like I went through the whole process by myself the first time. This time I have to bring my support system with me,
Yeah.
or else they're not going to even go any further.
Yeah.
So which is I'm glad they started doing that because it's nothing like doing this by yourself because even though you can to a certain extent, you should because you always need to have the extra person there. You need it.
Yeah. That's
No way around it.
Let me ask you, how long were you listed between the time you were listed and the time that you received the kidney? Do you remember?
7 years.
7 years. Wow. Okay. And during
Hmm.
that 7 years, and during that 7 years, were you doing dialysis during that time?
I did dialysis except for one of the 7 years
Okay.
where somehow the doctors got me so on point that I went a whole year off of dialysis just doing blood work for a
Wow.
month.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And the thing I have to say this part for me
Yeah.
because everybody's different. The reason why I went back on dialysis after that is because I got a primary care doctor that decided that I must get what do you call it, flu shot. I just gotta get it. It's just mandatory. So I get it, and I ended up next month getting the flu, and it almost killed me where I had to get a couple of blood transfusions and get back on dialysis from it.
Whoa. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
Okay.
So
And then so that was pretty much the primary reason you had to get back on dialysis and before you received the kidneys because of that. Like you said,
yeah, because I was following my diet and everything up
yeah,
to that point.
yeah,
That was it.
yeah. Did you
No
ever?
wrong of me.
Okay, right, right. Do you feel like you ever gotten because you didn't have the support system, like how did you maintain your hope? And did you feel like you ever got to the point where you were like, oh well, it's not, it's not really worth it? Or how did you maintain that hope and maintain that determination, saying, look, I'm going to get through this? And I light at the end of the tunnel, because 7 years can be a long time, especially if you're not, if you're doing all the right things, you're not hearing from your doctors. And I'm assuming that you kept in touch with your doctors, but not hearing any, feel like you're making any progress or whatever. So how did you kind of keep your
Well,
spirits up?
well, I mean, when you have loved ones, you got to think about them also.
Yeah.
It's not all about you. You got, first of all, foremost, you got to look at situations when it comes down to it, and over what you feel and all that stuff. The situation of the matter.
Yeah.
Me not actually pulling through wasn't an option. You know, as far as I was concerned, I got a son. It wasn't an option for me not to be there for him or do anything for him or anything. It wasn't an option.
Right.
My mom was still around. Dad was still around. Grandmother. It was like that wasn't an option. What I ended up doing while I was getting things done was deciding that what, part of me also that was suffering was my music part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I just started devoting more time with that also. So I didn't think about, oh, I'm not getting anywhere while I'm taking care of business. I kept my mind occupied. I kept me occupied. I just kept moving forward. Even
Right.
if it was baby steps, I was taking every step forward towards getting the goal done. So that's what I was doing.
Yeah, that's a great point, and like something I can relate to too, as being a parent. Also, at the time, I just, just like it's not an option. Failure is not an
Yeah.
option. You got, my kids. If I was willing to, which I never was, but if I was ever willing to give up, I was never willing to surrender, because I had kids to be here for, and they were young at the time. So it's like, man, that never even came across my mind. My doctors
Right.
even asked, like, oh, are you really sure this is something that you want to do? And like you said, it was really no question. It was really no hesitation. So I definitely know what you mean by that. So, and then once you got the transplant, let's talk about that a little bit, because what we didn't mention, and you kind of alluded to it, but you're also on the transplant list again, seeking another kidney transplant. So
That's correct.
what happened in that time, when you had the kidney? Said things were going well. What happened in that time? Can you give our viewers an idea of what happened as far as the rejection with the kidney, the previous kidney,
Oh,
the kidney you have now?
okay. Well, the rejection, it was a long period of time that it happened because I had my kidney for 7.5 years before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have had for longer if certain events didn't happen. So let me explain it to you. At the time, it was something I was living in Kalamazoo, Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and that whole year, it was something going around. People were getting sick off of something, and I'm actually going to different cafes and everything, being there for 8 hours or whatever, taking care of business online.
Mm-hmm.
Never caught anything. Immune system fine. I didn't catch anything until the combination of I tried my new doctor. I was trying to get my anti-rejection pills, new prescription for that. And he wouldn't give it to me until I got a chest X-ray, but I didn't have any kind of secondary payment for like what do you call it? I didn't have state help.
Medicare.
You know? Yeah, I had Medicare. I didn't have Medicaid, state
Medicare.
stuff.
Okay. All right.
So I'm telling him I can't afford it. This dude never gave me my pills from that point. He
Mm.
was just stubborn about the whole thing, which I learned that if that person's not going to do it, go to a doctor who will, because you still need it.
Yeah.
Bottom line, you still need it. You don't wait for them.
Right.
So so I had to get some money in the meantime. So I took up a security job, and I was around. I told you this stuff was going. There was something going around in Kalamazoo as far as like getting people sick. I'm
Mm.
around kids from fourth grade down on this bus as a security person because it was wild parents coming in there doing all kinds of things. So I had to do that, and I got sick from them.
Mm.
and they almost took me out. You know, they're beautiful, wonderful kids and everything, but they're germ carriers. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
all this time around all these people, nothing. You get around them, and that's it. You
Wow.
know, so luckily a friend of mine actually uh, came over, saw that I was out of it. I couldn't call or anything, and he called the ambulance. And you know, I
Mm.
just that very day I had to start back on dialysis. So I actually, what you do, I actually kept my fistula in my arm. I kept this.
Uh-huh.
People tell me get rid of this all them 7 years and everything. You're fine, get rid of it. I'm like, I might need it.
Yeah.
And it's working. I kept it. I took care of it. I didn't just say, I didn't look at it like, oh, I'm past the anti-rejection stage. I'm just gonna live regular. No, I live the way I need to live for me.
Mm.
And like I said, if I actually would have not had those situations happen, I probably still to this day still have my kidney. But that happened, and it's a learning experience. So
Right. Right. What do you so since then now you're back on the list again. Um, I wanted to ask. I know there's a lot of kind of false beliefs or myths that people believe with transplant. Can you like you probably heard them? Like the people think the person who donates needs to be on anti-rejection medicine the rest of their life, and they don't. So that's a myth. Like,
no.
what kind of myths have you come across that you've had to kind of teach people, correct people on, as far as kidney transplants is concerned?
Um, First one is once you get the transplant, then you don't have to go. You can go back to regular life
Mm.
to a certain extent. It's true, but you still after you get you have to get this kidney. You got to have the anti-rejection pills so your body doesn't attack it as a foreign object
Right.
in your body. So
Right.
you got to have that balance. You got to really understand your balance of you actually can get sick easily because your immune system has to go down a little bit just so it can keep your kidney.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if you don't keep everything on point, then you're gonna be sick either from the kidney getting rejected or you coming down with something. If you don't, so you have to really be on point. You have to realize that the rules that they have for you, some of them apply directly to you, and some of them are just general rules. So
Yeah.
you have to go and just find out what works and what doesn't work. But you don't go a heavy plunge and thing. You dip your toe in the water type thing.
Right.
So you
Right.
can't. People think that you just go and just, wow, I do what everybody else is doing once you get your kidney. And no, it's a whole different step in life. It's a better one, but it's a whole direction. You have to realize that you have to do everything for what's best, not what you're used to, what feels good, blah 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 blah. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lifestyle change, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
like,
direct lifestyle change.
it's a lifestyle change. It's not something that short-lived or like you talked about earlier. It's not about you fitting in. It's about you taking care of yourself. So there may be
Right, right,
things
right.
that you have to, forego or stop doing or whatever the case might be in order for you to take care of yourself. So,
But
and
most of the time, it's most of the time it's something you ain't supposed to be doing in the first place that you got it. Most of the time, your lifestyle changes for the better. Period. No
yeah,
matter if you was healthy, you should have done it that way in the first place. Most of the time.
right.
So
But see, I think a lot of people don't recognize or realize that, or it doesn't occur to them if they don't have an issue, then, why not? They don't see, even people now who might not be experiencing this and who can't relate to this conversation, somewhere down the road, someone that they care about will be affected by, uh, by maybe needing a transplant or maybe even being a donor. So, but again, like people who are quote unquote healthy, they don't think about these things because again, why? Because they haven't, like you and I, they haven't had anything to, you know, um, throw them off course or rock their world as far as health goes. goes. So I think that's a
True.
difference with the mentality and the thinking of it. So, but now back to you. You said you obviously you're back on the list, and so how are things now? I mean, I happen to know that you're looking to move soon to be closer to your support system. But you know, being your own advocate, how do you? I mean, you obviously you're a great advocate for yourself, but how did you kind of evolve to being such a like strong advocate? Because I always feel like people need an advocate in order to keep themselves on course. So it may be you advocating for yourself, or it may be someone else advocating for you. But how did you kind of learn to, okay, let me speak up and figure this out on my own, because nobody's going to come in and kind of help out. How did that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, well, first of all, I'm not on the list yet because the rules now are that I have to be with my support system and bring them to every meeting before I can get back on the list. So
Okay.
me moving back to Michigan near my sister is part of me getting on the list. So
Okay.
right now, the only reason why I'm still here is because they don't have chairs for me open because they're not taking that many patients, new patients now, as
Right.
far as like in different spots because of COVID.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be in time. It'll be changed. So, but anyway, how I started doing that was the fact that how I lost my kidney and not making that doctor put up or shut up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because he's telling me what to do, not understanding my situation. He wasn't even trying to hear it.
Yeah.
If I got a person that's not trying to hear what's going on with me, they're not helping me. They're hindering me. So I got to get to another person. So I'll tell a doctor very quickly, you can be replaced. I'll get somebody else
Mm-hmm.
because you're not the boss. We're in this together. If
Right.
you don't see that, you got to go.
Right. It's a
I
team.
mean, and it's sad that it took me almost being out of here again before I decided, enough of it.
Mm-hmm.
And oh yeah, and I have to tell you that he ended up being my doctor still when I was in dialysis, and that wasn't nice to him at all. I'm gonna let you know that right now. It was not nice. He had no saying nothing.
Wow.
I ran it because
Yeah.
I knew my body way better than him. So I ran things like, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do anything you tell me to do because that's what you want. If I know something's not gonna work, we're not doing that. I don't care if you don't feel like, oh, I want to take his opinion because I don't want to take his opinion because I have my own. No. And I mean, and you have to be a strong advocate for yourself, even with a strong advocate,
Yeah.
because you still got to relay the messages, how you feeling and everything to your advocate also. And
Right.
if you're passive with that, they can't do their job. So
Right.
bottom line, you have to be strong of things. You have to pay attention to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, if you don't take interest in what's going on, how's somebody else going to take interest in that? You got to be on it.
Yeah.
It changed for me instantly because I'm like, I can't put my hands in the life of somebody who don't care like that. You got to be invested.
Mm-hmm. And also, if you don't care about yourself, it's important for people to know that if you don't care about yourself, the doctors won't care
No,
about the situation, because they need to see that you're invested in your own health as they are in yours. Okay. So, and like you said, it's a team effort, right?
right,
So I see that too. If a patient's not going to their appointments, as far as making their appointments, or um, going to their maybe dialysis sessions or things like that, I've seen where they say, okay, well, we're just going to kind of put this person on ice. This person just doesn't really, this person is kind of really doesn't really care, but cares enough, and they don't care to the point where they recognize the importance. So their health may be,
right,
third or fourth down the line on the list of, things that's important to them. So at that point, I've seen where patients are just kind of in the loop. They're taken off
right,
the list. They're just going through the motions, kind of, so to speak. So I've seen that with my own eyes, and I've heard doctors talk about the importance for, like you said, for you to be your own advocate, and you know your body the best. So it's up to you to make those appointments. It's up to you to take your medication. another thing where people say, oh, well, I can slack on my medication. It's not true.
No, 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 no. I mean,
Yeah.
if something happens where you're late or something like that, once out of many times, okay, yeah, but you doing it consistently, that's
Yeah.
a no. That means that becomes a habit. You can't have the habit of that. You got to be on point. That's your habit.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that your goal is not only to get this kidney, but to realize how precious it is
Mm-hmm.
and to take care of it. Because they see how you are on your daily basis getting up to it, how
Right.
you going to take care of it afterwards.
Right.
And you really got to be on point. You can't give them any room for doubt whatsoever. If you do, they're going to move on to the next person.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this also. What did you say was the low point in all this? I mean, obviously, it's been years and years of, like you said, getting on the list, receiving the kidney, and then finding out that the kidney had rejected. So, what would you say is the lowest point for you during that time? I mean, was there ever any point where you were like, "Wow, this is," and you kind of go inside yourself and say, "Why me?" Was there any other time that you did that?
Yeah. The first time I did that was getting on the list, and a few things happened where I ended up missing a couple of dialysis. They weren't even back to back. They were like weeks apart. It took me off the list. Didn't even ask what happened or anything like that. And then I had to jump through a hoop for 6 months to even get back on it. And within jumping them through the hoops, it was that thought process of why me?
Yeah.
I mean, I was not able to go in because of something that they weren't even trying to hear me about. Why me?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it kind of got down for a period of time, but I had to get out of that because I'm like, well, anyway, it goes. They want 6 months, and I know they're being unreasonable, but hey, let me just make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh, did I lose you?
Okay.
There we go. There we go.
Somebody called me.
Oh,
So
okay, got you. Okay. I was wondering when we just flipped off. Okay, so basically you were saying, okay, that during that period of time where you had to miss the dialysis sessions, they didn't even want to hear why. It was like they just took you off the list and you had to kind of work to get back on it. So
yeah, it wasn't like a couple of weeks, and then no, they did the whole full 6 months.
Mm,
And so actually, like another week, just like to make sure type thing.
yeah.
So, I mean, but here's the thing though, at the time, I didn't understand what was going on, why they were being that way about it. It wasn't like they were vocalizing it to me.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like I can go to a support system at the time, which you can now. I keep telling people you can do that now. Now you can do that. You can get all the information that you need. You got a show like this to give you information now, which I mean, don't give up first and foremost. But I didn't have anybody there like, don't give up. They just need you to do such and such and such. I didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to actually get back on the horse myself and say, okay, well, they want to be stubborn. I'm going to be more stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
It just got to happen,
Yeah, I've heard that story also also where they, like you said, no matter what the reasons might be, if you can't, fulfill your dialysis appointments and things like that, they will kind of just knock you off of the list, and then people have to work to get back on. But again, I think what it is there's such a need for organs, that a lot of times it's kind of like there's always somebody behind you that's waiting for that organ, and it's finite, like a amount. So they're kind of like, well, if this person doesn't is not fulfilling their obligations, then we're gonna go to the next person in line. So I don't.
Right.
There's a lot of kind of I guess competition for organs, especially depending on where you live. So,
Right.
and we both kind of know how the system works on that. But so we've talked about the low points. What was the high point of this whole thing for you, as far as the journey? I call it just the journey. Yeah.
Man, the high point the very first high point I got out of it was I had I forgot where I went at first. I think I might have had gone to dialysis. No, that was a Saturday. So no, I forgot where I went at first, but I was tired. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go take a. I went home and said I'm gonna take a nap, and then I'm gonna go back out and grocery shop. And as I went to go take the nap, I got the call for the kidney.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So that was a high point, and
I bet
the
that woke
nurse
you
that
up.
called, no, it did. The nurse
Yeah.
that called me, it was her first call. So
Um,
I was her first patient. So she was like, how you doing? You want a kidney? That's how she approached me with.
really?
So of course that wakes you up like, what? You know, like somebody playing with me, you know?
Did you think you were dreaming? Did you think you were dreaming or what?
At first, that's why I had to sit up. You're like, okay, I gotta take this seriously just in case.
Yeah.
And at the time I lived 8 blocks away from where they did it.
Yeah.
So I tried to call some people to come in and drop me off and all that. Nobody answered the phone. I drove myself. Like,
Mm.
you know what, this gotta happen. You know? So I drove myself in there, and that same day, as soon as I got there, they were like, okay, here's your wheelchair. And I was like, okay, I was off my feet. All the paperwork needed to be done was being done as they wheeling me to the places.
Yeah.
And they got me dressed up for it. And they talked to me about something. Next thing I know was hours later, like 5 or 6 hours later, there you go. The high point was to getting that call, though, and knowing it's real.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you get? I don't know this part of the story, but was your call during the day, at night, in the morning? When was
It
your?
was 1:15 p.m. in the afternoon.
Oh wow. So you remember the time? Yeah, it's almost like I'm sure you remember your transplantation anniversary as well. Like we always had all had
It
this.
was on December 5th,
What
2009, December 5th.
December 5th?
December 5th, yes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah,
You
mine
know,
was.
because that was a good day. It was a nice warm day that day. When I came out, it was 10 below zero.
Oh man.
My car battery wouldn't start or anything because I had to get some. I couldn't drive for 5 months,
Yeah.
so I had to just have somebody come get the car, and then the battery decided no.
How
So
how long was your stay in the hospital after your transplant?
man, that was 6 days
Six.
because what they do is they detach all the plumbing there so they
Mm,
can fit that kidney in there, and they have to reattach it, and you have to actually be functional before you can leave, fully functional.
right. Right. Yeah.
So
No, so I was just wondering about that because I don't think that's ever something that I knew. So close to a week, but I'm sure it was well worth it, like you said. And you come out and like get hit with that cold breeze again, and
ooh, that was terrible.
I forgot how cold it
It-
was outside after being inside for a week.
Man, they had to give me a coat because I didn't bring no coat. I told you it was a nice day that day. I didn't bring a coat, nothing. I'm like, I can't go out here like this. You know, especially, your immune system is like nothing at that point. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You got to see whether or not it's going to take it or reject it for like the first couple of weeks.
Yeah.
You can't go outside in the cold like that. But it's going to reject it as soon as you get out there. So,
Yeah.
so I got an extra coat out of it. I mean,
What
this is
message
what.
would you give?
Go ahead.
What message do you think? Well, what message would you give people? You mentioned hope earlier, but what message would you give people as far as who are maybe in that position as well, who are maybe awaiting a transplant, or maybe like you said, just aware of a condition where this something might not be right, but just hesitant to go get it checked out.
Well, I mean, you got to get yourself checked out.
Yeah.
Bottom line, especially when if you get around 40ish. We have the prostate check that they call the digital exam, which is nothing digital, but it's totally analog still. You still, you still gotta get checked out. You know what I'm saying? So the whole hesitation on it, do the best you can about getting health care as best you can, just get it done. You know what I'm saying? Just avoiding it doesn't do anything but make it worse.
Mm.
There is something that I forgot to say that's very, 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 very important.
Okay.
I got the call for a kidney before that, like about 7 months before that, and ended up being the kidneys ended up being bruised on the way to the hospital. So
Ooh.
wasn't able to get it at the time. There was two of them that came, but both of them got bruised. So the problem I had was explaining. I never get to really fully explain to my mother and father that it could something like that could happen. They told me, but I never told them that. So you have to share all the information with your advocate. Will know because they're there with you. But anybody else in your family is close, you have to share that with them. Like there's no guarantee that when you get called in that you're gonna get the kidney.
Yeah.
That's step one. You know, that's all that's step one. It's a great step, but
Yeah.
there's no guarantee because anything can happen.
Wow. Now that's something I've never thought about. You know, like you said, it's not official until you're actually on that operating table, and you know
It's
they are.
not official till you wake up. And it's in you. You know what I'm saying? It's not official to the end. I mean, even when they put it in you, if it's not operating at all, you know, it's gotta come out.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, that's one of them things where it's a tough one though, because the fact of the matter, this whole thing is a physical, mental, and emotional thing. It's very hard on you. It's very hard on the people who love you. All that comes into play. You got to be strong with this. You cannot be iffy person. You cannot be a person who cannot be honest with themselves. You will not survive with any illness if you know anything in life like that. If you're gonna lie to yourself about that, you cannot lie to yourself about anything. You can't deceive yourself about anything. You got to be open. You got to be honest. You got to be on point.
Right. I think it's important to also talk about how supportive the doc, when you have the right team around you, as far as a
Mm-hmm.
medical team, how supportive they are and how they really, again, if you're advocating correctly, how informed you are as a patient. So I think a lot of
Right.
people who may be potential donors may be intimidated by the process because they may feel like more attention is paid to the recipient, but from everything that I know and people I've spoken with and had a pleasure of interviewing, the doctor team, their doctor, they have a whole separate doctor team, as a matter of fact, for the
First
donor
of all, yes.
family. So they take as good a care as you as they do for the recipient. So they keep you in the loop, keep you informed. And again, you have to ask questions, but I just want to shout out kind of the doctors too. If you get the right medical team and you're asking the right questions, then the process is not as intimidating as people might think it might be. So that's something
Yeah.
I was mentioning. Also, one more thing I wanted to ask you. Were you ever able to speak with the family after the donor family after your transplant? Were you ever able to get in
I,
touch with them?
you know what? For some reason, I didn't want to bother them, but I
No.
was able to.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I was able to do that. That was the option. I
Mm.
I don't know why. I don't even. I don't know.
Okay.
I can't put myself in the. I was a different person back then. I can't put myself in the shoes.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I was able to. You know,
Yeah.
definitely able to, and I would love to have talked to them now. You know, but I didn't do it. So
Yeah. Yeah. I know of situations, but my personal situations, I was trying to get in touch and just couldn't, and they just never responded. So, uh, but some great friendships and bonds can come out of that when you are able to, obviously, because obviously we are grateful to the donor and the donor family for our,
right.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
But
One thing I wanted to say that you were saying about how the doctors are with the donors also.
yeah,
The doctors are excellent, you know, because first of all, they make sure I mean, the kidney foundation, all those places make sure that they're taken care of through the whole thing. As far as like, they don't have to worry about where they're gonna stay when they come in and all that stuff.
Right, right.
But the main thing I like to let people know, if you donate for somebody, it's gonna take you a little while to, after you donate, to get back to being balanced, because you're used to the two kidneys and one can do the job very well,
Mm.
but your body has to get balanced out to get used to that again. So it's going to be a little rough on you at first, but the gift you're going to give that person of life is going to be worth it. I mean, because you're giving them life. I mean, before they were surviving, you giving them life.
Mm.
You know, it's a big difference. Like right now, I wake up a happy person every day because that's just who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't think I'm gonna be not gonna be a happy person, with more energy and everything? Come on, you know,
Yeah.
come on now.
It's a huge difference,
Hmm.
huge difference. And it's as people who receive organs, I think it's a huge responsibility that we have as well. But yes,
Right.
yes, it's just really it's a modern day miracle that that can happen, and to just be able to be chosen, is just like really mind blowing in a lot of ways. So, um,
Right. Right.
just wrapping up though, I wanted to ask you: was there anything else you wanted to say to our viewers as far as the experience? I mean, we touched on a lot here already, but is there anything else that you would like to say? Because again, I know that you advocate whenever you can about organ transplantation and just explaining things to people. Because again, there's a lot of misinformation floating around and people maybe not knowing everything they need to know, and how important of an issue this is. Again, if it doesn't affect you, for a lot of people, it's just like, oh, it just rolls off the shoulder. But is there anything that you want to share here in closing with people?
Well, uh, for the people that's around someone who's going through the whole trying to get a organ transplant, one of the things you have to understand is that you have to be a listener,
Mm-hmm.
because you're learning information from a person. First of all, you're supposed to be a listener to everybody in the first place. You around that person, you're supposed to listen to what they're talking about. You're supposed to know what page they're on, the whole 9 yards. But you really need to do that for someone like this, because otherwise you're gonna give people advice on stuff. Like I had somebody give me vanity advice on this. This looks ugly. Get that taken out, and then once again saved my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wasn't here. I wasn't trying to hear. This is somebody I potentially wanted to. It was an ex of mine I wanted, that I saw again for the first time in years. We were like, oh, we're gonna try this out and everything. Once he said that, I was done.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's more important than I might need this. No, we're good. No,
Yeah.
because she doesn't have my back. If that's more important than my health, that you ain't got my back. I know that's not what I know she cared and everything, but I can't wait until she understands what's going on with that.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta do what I gotta do. So I was like, if that's more important than health, and it shouldn't be. How things look over how things are, never supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be how things are is more important than how it looks.
Right. Right.
No matter what your situation is, how it is way more important than how it looks.
Wow.
So
Now
I don't know anything else to
that's
tell you.
powerful. That's a really powerful kind of point, to like exclamation point, to put on the end of the interview. Because people, again, from the outside, um, as a recipient, you are looking kind of further ahead in the future of what may happen, and it's important that people know this too. This goes right with your point. When you get a transplant, it's actually just it's not a cure, it's a treatment.
No.
It's not a cure, it's a treatment. Because people think, oh, you've gotten your organ, you're treated now. But no, taking care of the organ is a whole different ball game altogether. It's just, it's day-to-day maintenance. You're never cured, because again, you take these anti-rejection medicines for the rest of your life. So it's important
There's
that
no day
people,
off either.
yeah,
No day off.
Right, no days off. Right, it's important that people know this. So I'm glad you made that. I'm glad you made that point there, because that's something that a lot of people don't realize. It's not a cure-all at all. It's just a treatment. All right.
Now,
So,
it makes life better, and it's a temporary treatment that can last as long as you allow it to last.
right. Right.
So,
Yeah. All right. Well, man, I appreciate you joining me, man, making the time for me. It's been
oh man,
great.
pleasure,
Yeah, it's been great.
pleasure.
This has been another episode of Lifers, and we thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us today.
Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next guest.
We need your help to spread support and awareness for organ transplant and donation.
Please share this video and channel with your friends.
Tell someone something that you learned or heard from today's guest.
Get in touch with us if you'd like to join us as a guest.
See you next time.
Peace.